Now, as you know, the big thing in this event, beside the distinguished university professors, is the highlighting of 3 faculty members. And we go through a process to select these individuals. We look for cool ideas, ideas about things that they have passion about. Sure, it has relevance to UMB, but it has relevance to them as individuals. And they're going to tell passionate stories. They're a TED Talk-like story. So I'd like to start that to begin with by welcoming Dr. Sydnee Chavis. She's a clinical assistant professor in the Division of Special Care and Geriatrics at the Dental School. She's going to speak to us about what a gift her sister is and how her sister has created such a positive perspective in Sydnee's life, her family, and her patients. So, Dr. Chavis, you're on.
A little too short for that. Hi, good morning. I am so excited to get to speak to you all today about my sister, Brandi. She's the oldest of my 3 siblings and I, and she has cerebral palsy and developmental disabilities. Now, Brandi is a little bit different. She communicates differently in vocalizations, ahs, mms, and in songs, da 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 da. She'll break out into song to grab the attention of the person she's trying to communicate with. And when my husband and my younger sister are around, is rarely me. But when I hear da 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 da, I know she's talking to me. Brandi has bobbed brown hair of short ringlets and a smile as wide as her face. Her green eyes sparkle. And when I was a kid, I didn't understand why everyone didn't have a sister like Brandi. To me, our family of 6, with 4 kids, was the norm. I thought that our dinner time routine of doing math problems, what's 25 times 25? Doing the mental math at a restaurant to guess the check and see who's closest, was what everyone did. And it was the same with Brandi. She was, and is, the leader of the Chavis 4 as the oldest sibling. And to me, her place in our family was not just our normal, but the normal. I didn't think we were different or weird, despite what I now know about our dinner time math routine. I was just a kid in a comfortable home environment with 3 built-in best friends and a lot of chaos. Can you see Brandi? Can you see that gorgeous brown hair and those beaming green eyes? And can you hear the sweet sound of an earworm that you can't quite pick your finger on, but you know that you know? Well, that's all I saw and heard. She was, and is, my big sister, whom I adore. I realized my family was a little bit different when I was about 5 years old. I was out to dinner with a friend's family, and nobody said anything about guessing the check before they looked at it. So to me, that's my first indication that my family was a little bit unique, but I didn't attribute that to Brandi until I was out to dinner with my family, and someone about my age pointed out that Brandi was different. We were at a local diner where we were regulars on an almost weekly basis, remember, 4 kids. One night, while we were waiting for a table, on the sticky fake leather bench in the checkerboard-floored vestibule of this diner, we were singing with Brandi to pass the time. And there was a little girl who saw Brandi, turned to her mom, and said, "What's wrong with her?" What's wrong with her? I thought. What does she mean? Then, as I continued to watch this little girl, my peer, my contemporary, I noticed she continued to stare at Brandi, not necessarily in a malicious or negative way, but with curiosity and confusion. It was like she had never seen anyone like Brandi before, which led to my confusion. Why not? It was beyond me at the time, though I realize now, that girl was raised without the gift of a Brandi as a big sister. But this encounter sparked a flurry of questions in me. "Mom, is something wrong with Brandi?" I asked. First of all, we do not speak about Brandi like she's not here or she can't hear or understand us. Second of all, no, there's nothing wrong with her. Brandi does some things differently. She does some things well and some not as well as other people. Aha. My first memories of my family discussing that Brandi is a little different. What people might see as the them in the us versus them of people without disabilities and people with disabilities. But it was never framed to us, my siblings and I, that Brandi has a disability. We were always told and taught and saw and lived that Brandi does things so much better than some people, like remembering a song after hearing it one time, or chiming in with the perfect comedic timing in the perfect situation, or not acknowledging people or situations in which she doesn't feel respected, something that my people-pleasing self still struggles with tremendously. And that she does some things not as well as other people, like talk and walk. And that's my big sister, a brilliant, funny, sweet, and loving, and incredibly capable woman. As I got older and I became more socialized and began to understand the world around me, I didn't see Brandi any differently, but I learned that other people did. I saw Brandi's differences were seen by other people as disabilities, that her special set of gifts, different than the majority of people's, caused more difficulties for her than other people. That's because the world around her, our world, is not built for people with impairments, and the unaccommodatingness is what creates a disability. I feel very lucky to exist in a time where the ADA exists, the American with Disabilities Act, not the American Dental Association for all my dentists out here, so my sister can get the support she needs, like a parking spot close to a building, or a reasonably sized bathroom in a public place, despite the raging difficulties of self-flushing toilets. But it's not always easy having a loved one with a disability. I mean, it's difficult enough for me to use a self-flushing toilet, let alone when I'm helping Brandi, trying to hold my hand over the sensor, put a toilet seat cover down, all the time getting her seated before the toilet flushes on its own. It's a bit of a challenge. As wonderful as a gift as it is to have Brandi as a sister, and for her to be who she is, there's always an element of concern. Is she feeling okay? Can she communicate her needs to me so that I can understand them and help her when she needs it? How can I make sure she's not being taken advantage of or bullied? How can I best advocate for her? I didn't see Brandi clinically until I became a clinician. I didn't think of her like a patient or describe her by her impairments. But as I started to learn more clinically, I understood her diagnoses a bit more. She's an adult woman with cerebral palsy and developmental disabilities. She's nonverbal, she's ambulatory, but requires assistance at all times because she's a fall risk, and she needs 24/7 support. She has some habitual stimming behaviors, which are often described or viewed as maladaptive for people with disabilities. Brandi's include her vocalizing, shaking her head, and shaking a schmata, which in Yiddish means rag, but around our house is usually just a bouquet of ribbons. I, of course, still love and adore her and see her as my big sister. But now there's the element that I've been socialized to describe her by her impairments. Well, there's nothing like having a kid to gain some perspective at, right? And to my utmost joy, I have the pleasure and delight of having two boys, my oldest, Jordy, who just turned 2, and my youngest, Spencer, who is 4 months, and from whom I returned maternity leave this week. Thanks. It's been a fun transition back. Jordy, another ringlet-headed kid, but with blonde curls instead of Brandi's chestnut brown, and with sparkling blue eyes instead of Brandi's green, adores his Aunt Brandi. He calls for her constantly and looks forward to and loves every time he gets to be with her and see her. Aunt Bandi is more common for us to hear than no, which, for a toddler, is a pretty huge deal. And just like Jordy repeatedly tried to do a handstand as we watched the Olympics together this summer, Jordy likes to do everything his Aunt Bandi does. He's a toddler, deep into mimicry, which includes Aunt Bandi's stimming behaviors. He sits in his high chair, eating his dinner, and closes his eyes, feeling the spiritual azure of his chicken nuggets, like he sees his Aunt Bandi doing. Then he picks up his napkin, wipes his face, and shakes it like a schmata that he sees Aunt Brandi doing. Jordy and Brandi's relationship brings me back to my 5-year-old self, asking, why doesn't everyone have a Brandi? And as Jordy's mom and Brandi's sister, I am so grateful that Jordy has his Aunt Bandi. Jordy doesn't see his aunt as less than or as having something wrong with her. He sees her genuinely and unabashedly as his adoring aunt whom he wants to be like and with. Jordy doesn't see her as an adult woman with cerebral palsy and intellectual developmental disabilities, maladaptive behaviors, who is ambulatory with habitual stimming and ambulatory concerns. To him, her head shaking, schmata waving, and sing-talking are very simply just things she does without any judgment from him. I do not speak for Brandi, but I do speak here to you on her behalf. And if she could talk to you now, I think she would say, see me and not my CP and IDD. Respect me as a person. Don't pity or patronize me as a disabled or impaired person. My vision makes me impaired. I need my glasses to see you all here today. Right now, nothing. But enough people are visually impaired that there are glasses that can correct my vision. There we go, that's better. Think of the things for which there are no glasses. Think of the impairments that you have. What aren't you good at? I know with all the internationally renowned people here, probably not many, but I'm sure there are some things. Now think about your siblings. I want you to see my sister the way you see your sister. I want you to see my sister the way my son sees her, or the way my 5-year-old self saw her. As someone who is recognized as able by her humanity, not diminished by her disability. Thank you.